7:03, call the meeting to order. We have the three of us here in person and two other members attending remotely. First up in the agenda, we have two projects ready for a final application review and ideally a vote. The first of those two projects is the Town Common railing and fence post restoration project. Any questions, comments, thoughts on that project? Things you might like to see, get conditioned on, or perhaps things to appear in the article that we haven't already spoken about?
One thing for me, I know that we're trying to revise our process for actually approving applications, and we talked about potentially revising applications as they go forward. I was taking another look at it, and the memo that Bill Cundiff includes the other two options that we're not going with. So just in terms of process, should we ask or request that they remove or revise or make clear that we're going up with option 3?
Yes, so because that's something, here's how I envision that happening. I thought about that too, Grant, because we've already discussed, the preferential option. Our vote this evening can be contingent on a couple of different things, depending on the project, but one of them being that the application will be updated to reflect the discussions that we had during the process. And that update will be submitted to us prior to, I have to look at the calendar here, but somewhere around mid-February. Just pulling my calendar here. We are aiming to have our warrant articles written by March 1st, and that really sort of sets the schedule for us right there. So I think we'd be looking to have applications updated by February 17th, would give us time, I believe.
Okay, so essentially we would vote tonight potentially, and then
Yes,
contingent that they would do it, and then
yes,
just make sure that they actually do it before we put the warrant article forward.
correct.
Okay.
Yep, and we have to vote, of course, on the actual warrant article language as part of it.
Other than that, I don't think I have anything. I think it was a strong application and really didn't have many questions from the start. So we're just supporting it.
Ellen?
I would agree with that. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we had any outstanding questions for them. I think everything was answered over the course of our meetings. So yeah, I appreciate you bringing up about revising the application. But otherwise, yeah, happy for that one to go forward.
Great, thank you. Lisa?
Just again, I also think this was a great application, and I think with the tricentennial coming that this is important to get this done. But Freddie had mentioned, Ben, adding a little extra for a historical appraiser. Is that something that we want to include in our vote, or is that something sorry, you want to discuss during the final application?
I think we can discuss it during the final application. Having looked through the application itself, that third estimate for the I want to say it's around $130,000. That had input from this historical preservationist in determining the materials and so forth to be used. So, for my part, I feel comfortable with much greater comfort with that than, for instance, with the water tower. I think we absolutely need the services of a preservationist.
Okay, agreed. So I'm definitely in support of this. Thank you.
Brett, any questions, comments about the railing and fence restoration?
No, I think, like everyone said, I think this one's great, and I'm in support.
Fantastic, thank you. So,
Actually, Ben, I do have one more question. So, I was going through the minutes that you sent. Great minutes, by the way. And at the October 23rd meeting set minutes, you had suggested maybe putting language in the warrant to preserve the railing from future disturbance, or thinking about something like the Main Street project coming through, or paving over the town common one day or something like that. So I was just wondering about to be honest, that kind of slipped off my radar, but I would be
Yeah.
interested in something like that if it's possible.
I seem to recall our discussion was something along the lines that we would include in the warrant article. Um. Somehow the town's intention to, you know, to preserve the railing in the future. That was a commitment that was made here, you know, to the committee. So we would put right in the warrant article, you know, after describing the scope of work, put something into the warrant, the effective, the town commits to, maintain the railing in its present location and configuration. You know,
Yeah, I think that'd be good to include. Would that be something in our vote tonight or just in contingent or something like that? Or would that be,
so because it was part of our previous discussions, I think we could, you know, that would of course be part of updating the application, and also part of drafting the warrant article.
Okay.
So I think, I think we can, I think it is wrapped into that.
Okay.
So that would be the.
all right, that's for me, I think. Although I said that last time, but now I think I'm voting on it.
So, looking for a motion to, recommend, to town meeting, the funding of the town common, railing and fence post, rehabilitation project. I believe that the title correct. Contingent upon the applicant, revising the application to reflect the discussions that took place during the review process, and having those revisions to us. Actually, I'm gonna say, give us 2 full weeks, February 10th, and that will give us 2 weeks to get the warrant articles drafted. So by February 10th. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Thank you. And is there a second?
Second,
Thank you. Let's see, all those in favor, excuse me, yeah, we're hybrid here, so I have to call the roll. Lisa Braccio?
Hi, but can I ask a question, Ben?
Oh, of course.
Sorry, should we have included the amount in the motion, or do we just approve the project itself and then as we go further in and drafting the warrant, put the amount in at that point?
Yeah, as we go further, we start talking about the amount of a contingency.
Okay, that's fine.
And
Thank you.
you bet, you bet. Okay, so Lisa, you were a yes?
Yes,
Okay, Brett Peters,
Yes,
thank you. Grant Barrington,
yes.
Ellen Maria,
Yes.
Ben Smith is a yes. Fantastic. Okay. So next up, engine 25 refurbishment. Got Nate here this evening. Thank you for joining us, Nate. Yeah, Grant, you gave me a call earlier today and we spoke a little bit about this. So I think you probably have some comments to make.
Yeah, I have a few things. So let's see, the first thing that I would be interested, so I guess one of my lingering concerns is kind of the public funds for private use concern, which often happens with historical artifacts or preservation projects. I would be interested to see some sort of, if not, guarantee, but some sort of legal language that would guarantee access for the town, or even a conveyance. I know that Ben, we talked about town might not actually want the truck because of upkeep and that kind of thing, but my concern, and this is not just specific to the association, but just in general, if you give somebody $300,000 and they don't, there's no kind of guarantee that there has, the public has to see that the item, or that the association can't dissolve or sell the truck for a profit or something like that. And then, the town could lose its investment and essentially waste $300,000 or whatever the cost is. So I would like to see something to that effect. I know that, Ben, you mentioned coordinating with town council on some sort of affidavit. But that's one thing that I would be interested in before being ready to vote on it. Another concern that I have just, and maybe Nate, you might be able to speak to this, is regarding the cost. I know that at one of our previous meetings, you had said that you had found an engine for like a donor engine, and that just good news. But I was wondering, what does that do, if you have any sense, for the overall cost of the project? That does it reduce it because you no longer have to?
So me and the chief actually did a little a road trip to the shop that will be doing the work. We discussed it with the shop owner. And he would like to keep the quote as is. He kind of reminded us that that quote is something he made up back in July. When this work when we actually finally start doing the work, it's gonna be July of this year. So this is a whole year of him guaranteeing that price. He has to deal with material costs that have changed already, labor costs on his end that's already changed already. And he's kind of being pretty good about not actually changing the number, not raising it. And he's kind of taking into consideration that we do have that engine. But he still wants a buffer. He doesn't, if he reduces the price, he's reducing his buffer and could potentially get himself into a little spot where, he's gonna get, he potentially could not be profiting, he could be in the negative. So it was discussed with the three of us, and we said it's probably best we just leave it alone, especially for him. He's got a lot of factors that we didn't even think about, especially with the material costs. So we thought it was just best to just leave it alone.
Okay, that's helpful. Thanks.
Yeah, invoices, of course, will come across the desk of CPC as the project goes along, and we'll have an idea where things are. And of course, if there are any funds left over, those get at the end of the project get returned to the Community Preservation Trust Fund for reuse for other projects.
That's pretty much what he said. If there was something left over, it's easier just to give it back than to try to come back another year and ask for more.
Oh, yeah, because that's a whole nother town meeting cycle.
So I guess where I'm at right now is concerns about essentially the public benefit of what we're getting for it in terms of preserving access, but also just in terms of the cost. We only have 700 something thousand. I believe the historic bucket is already maxed out, right? So this would just come from the general, unreserved general fund balance, and I'm just, it's a significant chunk of money, and I guess I'm not, at least right now, and this could change, but I'm not convinced at public benefit that we'd be getting for it necessarily. Not to say that there's no public benefit, but and also in terms of what if, I know that you presented two different options, kind of minimal $100,000 versus the full restoration, and kind of what are we getting for the extra 200,000? What's the value add there? So those are some of the concerns I have, and just trying to balance the other pending applications that we have. So those are some of my thoughts.
Thank you. So I just want to touch on the public benefit aspect of it. So we are required to make sure that we don't run afoul of the anti-hate amendment, which regulates the use of public funds being spent on a private project like this. So the way we've dealt with it in the past, for instance, with the Buck family Civil War flag restoration, was with in that case it was an affidavit that basically said that in the event that the historical society was going to dispose of the flag, sell it or transfer ownership of it, it would go to the town, and also in the event of like a dissolution, the society would go to the town. So we would absolutely have something like that here. If the Firefighters Association for some reason dissolved, the ownership would go to the town, or if the association could no longer maintain ownership of it, the town would it would be offered first to be given to the town before any other kind of disposition. And then when Grant and I chatted this afternoon, Grant had a concern. So the real public benefit from the restoration will be some of the great uses that you talked about. The two that I recall are a number of them. First, appearing in parades, and where it look fantastic and be really interesting. I would anticipate visits from next door, the school. we had mentioned even, use in, funeral processions and so forth. And in a number of other public uses. And Grant, posed the question, what if those public uses just stopped, but where does that leave the town? So we would want to work with you to find some way to sort of address that. And I'll just throw an idea out there that occurred to me while Grant and I were talking was, if some period of time elapsed where there was no public sort of interaction with the engine, like if a year went by or something like that. Then we would, talk about the disposition of the engine. But what are your thoughts on that? Or if you think of a better way to address it, by all means.
But I really don't see any future lapse of the use of the truck. I mean, we always have the parades.
Right.
We always have Heritage Day. We're always doing something for summer nights. We're always at the schools doing public education, whatnot. If anything, it actually opens up the door for us to do a little bit more.
Right.
To get out there and, to show it off.
Yeah.
And there's not just in town too, it's also sort of preservation for the truck itself. There's a big following for antique fire apparatus. Certain manufacturers. The manufacturer of this truck was a Massachusetts-based manufacturer. There's not many of these trucks out there to begin with, and it's preserving it for everybody to kind of enjoy. It's it's nice to just have it around still. A lot of this stuff, it just like anything else, if it gets lost or destroyed, it's gone forever.
Right. Thank you. I guess from my perspective, I would be comfortable including language in the affidavit that simply lists in a general way like these intentions. So the truck is going to be exhibited publicly and these types of programs and just so that it's the goal is spelled out clearly in the affidavit. I would be comfortable with, but I don't know, Grant, if that would necessarily satisfy service.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about an extreme scenario and, in which, let's just say this association is in a pinch with their finances or something. I have no idea what your revenues and expenditures are for a year, and you need some cash quick or something like that. And you decide you have this asset that's now worth $300,000 and it's time to sell it to a collector or something to preserve the future of the association. Then that might be great for the association, but it's not great for the town, which will have lost it, and it goes to another, another state. Who knows? But
But I would absolutely foresee language in there talking about disposition of the fire truck. If it's not owned by the association, then the ownership transfers to the town, regardless of the cause of that. That I should have said that up front. Like that would be really the primary thrust of the affidavit, but also listing in the goals of the project and how the public good is achieved.
Yeah, I mean, and I'd like to let others speak as well, but in terms of the public benefit, I was trying to kind of compare it to other large ticket items or things that have come before CPC, and I was comparing it in my mind to the Burnett property, which I think was what, 900,000 or $1 million?
Yeah.
Was it $1 million?
It was $1 million, yeah.
Okay, so this is essentially the third of that, let's just say, for roughly. And I guess I'm still not convinced about what that's one of the most important properties in town. I know there's been some, I guess, controversy about whether or not that was a good investment, but same with the St. Mark's,
The bell tower,
the library, like these are prominent buildings that get seen every day. Large amounts of money were spent on them, but they're also like part of the fabric of the community. And I guess in terms of the public aspect of this, public asset access aspect of this, sorry, I can't speak. I've seen the truck. I think it's very cool, but it's sitting in the corner of the garage. This is something that we would see 2 days a year, maybe 1 day a year, school children might see it more often, but they could see it now as well, I think. And so, I don't know, for such a large investment, I guess I'm not totally there on what we're getting for it. And putting it in comparison to this, some other things that we've done for large amounts of money.
Understood. I want to make sure that Lisa and Brett get a chance to speak also. So you guys have been listening in. Thoughts on this, the affidavit?
So I think, Grant, I hear what you're saying, but I also think with the tercentennial coming and everything, and you start looking at the history of Southborough and, what's transpired over time and how important this is, I think this fire truck plays a huge role in this, in, the history that Nate has provided of, going into the fire. Was it Nate, the Quincy? I'm trying to remember what fire it was. Chelsea? Yeah, okay. So going into the fire, but not only that, I think I think it's an important historical relic, if I can use that word, but I think there is a way to alleviate your concerns, Grant, and I think, Ben, you address it. I agree, addressing it through an affidavit, and just making sure that we cover bases that we're comfortable with and that the association is comfortable with as well. It is a big investment, but, to lose an opportunity like this, we're losing history every single day. And to lose an opportunity here on something that, means a lot to a lot of people, it's not about specifically whether you support the fire department or not, but it's just about, it's a piece of history that we have within our grasp that we can do something to help preserve. So for me, I'm supportive of the project, and I think there's a path to get there, to make this happen. Thank you, Ben.
Thanks. Brett?
Yeah, I guess I'd just like to mostly echo what Lisa said. I think it's a pretty valuable project, and I guess I would lean towards thinking it's worthwhile. And then the only hesitation I might have, I kind of temper with the fact that I think for me, it's obviously good enough to put in front of the town to decide. I think it's a worthwhile project, and I think it's worthwhile to get on the ballot and see what everybody thinks and get up for a vote. So that's where I'd lean towards. Even if I have a few questions, I'd still lean towards getting it up there and voting a yes from us.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And I guess I will say it's also, with any questions, it's important for us to air them during the application process, even for projects we support, because, we have to anticipate what will get asked at town meetings. So we've had time to think of the answer to that. So, any questions only serve to help strengthen a project, is my opinion.
Just so you know, I know Ellen hasn't gotten it, but
Yes.
Kristen Laval has her hand raised.
Let's
when we get there.
finish with the committee first, and then Kristen will call on you. I'm sorry, Ellen.
No. Yeah, I would agree with what Brett was saying, that I really appreciate you raising those concerns. I think everything you laid out in terms of the affidavit makes a lot of sense in terms of ensuring that both the disposition, if that ever had to come up, and the access as well. It is a lot of money from the general fund, but I feel like that's a town meeting decision. I feel like the history that you've showed us over the course of the application process, the photos, its role in these important fires in our history, and the Chelsea fire, it meets kind of all of the requirements that I was looking for, to really show the value to the town. And I know the concern was something like the Burnett House, and I feel like this would be a different level of access, and potentially even more than something like that. I feel like, we can all drive by the Burnett House every day, but we can't go inside. And this is something that we could interact with. I know Kinder Group does a field trip to the firehouse every year. That's one of the most popular things that's done. And so the opportunity for kids to run around there, climb on it, do all of those things, I feel like it's always a favorite. So this is something that I support.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Mind if I just
Please.
touch on since you have concerns? From day one, the association's main goal was to be the mechanism to get the truck back, restore it. And the original goal was to turn it over to the town. either before or after the project was completed. But it was after the year, after, you know, taking a year to look at the project, figure out things, really kind of look at the best options. The association decided to go down the road we're going now with keeping ownership. With a 100% intent of if ever anything ever happened with the association, like you said, that we can't handle, we can't afford the upkeep. The association somehow dissolved. We were 100% ready to just hand it over to the town. And we're ready to work with the town lawyer to create some sort of conveyance that's going to happen. We don't want the truck to leave. We don't want it to end up in some private collection because it could end up in the condition it's in now. We want it to stay here for the rest of its life. That was the whole intent of this project. And I think the other concern with the access, I know you guys touched on the Burnett House. It's, like you said, you can drive by, it looks great. It's private property, but you can just sit on the sidewalk and look at it. Chief Montini said that this truck is going to be stored here. It's a public building. At any time, anybody can come in here and say, I want to see the truck. And it'll be sitting in the corner, and anybody here will bring you right over and you can go sit in it. You can go look at it. That was kind of the whole intent, is to keeping it in the station, as anybody at any time would come here to look at it.
I would anticipate, you know, for instance, parades, I would suspect any parade that the fire department takes part in, this would, so, you know, Veterans Day, 4th of July, then we have, you know, a number of Southborough, special events, you know, down at the Neary School, Heritage Day, what's the other,
Heritage Day, summer nights.
yeah, summer nights. So I think the public would have, many opportunities through the year to see and to see up close the fire truck. But Grant, to your point, you're correct. It wouldn't be, you know, it wouldn't be an everyday thing for sure. There would be some necessary limitations to it. Regarding the ownership, I think the association, this is my feeling, maintaining ownership may be looked upon favorably, you know, at town meeting, because there's, you know, questions will come up about the cost of maintenance, insurance, and so forth. And this would, you know, sort of take that off the table for the town. So I think
That was one of the other things we had looked into, was making sure there wasn't any more burden to the taxpayer. Part of that is we keep the ownership, insurance is on us, upkeep is on us. The other thing too is ensuring it through municipality. We didn't realize it's not cut and dry. There's actually a lot of insurance companies that won't even touch it if it's owned by municipality.
Oh,
So that
interesting.
was something I learned. There is some insurance companies that will do it. But you have to jump through a bunch of hoops to even get it done, because it doesn't qualify. It's not your everyday piece of apparatus. And then they also require certain drivers. If we take ownership of it, then we can decide who drives it.
Yeah.
It opens up the window for a lot more people on the insurance policy that can drive it. If it's a municipality, a lot of times there's only like 2 or 3 people that are allowed to even drive it. So we want to keep that open also for the membership, to make sure our side also had the availability to say, if, you know, we have multiple drivers, not just one.
Right.
So
These are the kind of answers to have prepared for the potential future town meeting presentation. Honestly, this is fantastic. All right, so Kristen Laval, first, welcome. What are your thoughts on the Engine 25 refurbishment?
Thanks, Ben. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So I think my question is more procedural, and for everybody on the committee. Personal feelings aside, there's nothing about this application that doesn't, or I guess my question is, does anyone doubt that there's anything about this application that makes it CPA fund eligible? Because if not, that's the answer, right? It goes to town meeting and then everyone can reflect on the importance they put in the historical aspect and value of this project.
Actually, Kristen, I think our role is more than just to sign off and whether or not it's eligible. We actually have some decision-making power in terms of whether or not it's a good investment of funds and that kind of thing. I know that we've talked about this internally before. I think Kathy Cook had mentioned something similar in the past about, essentially, once we make a determination that it's eligible, we have to forward it to town meeting, and I know that we've disputed that in the past.
Yeah.
So I think we do actually have a responsibility to make sure that it's a good use of funds, that there's enough funds in the budget to support it, and other aspects of it. At least that's what I would say.
Yeah, thanks, Grant. I agree with your description there. I think that, by statute, we are required to exercise some discretion. We talked before about, our dream of getting to the point where potential applicants get in touch with us, years beforehand. We put together a 5-year plan where we start budgeting out for projects in the future. Where we'd be in a situation where we'd say, well, we can't fund this project because we are saving up for this one that's going to come to us in 3 years, that kind of discretion. So, yeah,
No, and I actually absolutely agree with that. I think the situation you mentioned with Kathy was a little bit different in terms of the applications in front of us at that time. So thank you. That's exactly what I was looking for just that clarification.
Okay, thank you very much. I know there's one other person who has joined us remotely from the public. If you'd like to ask a question or make a comment, please use the raise hand function and we'd love to hear from you.
Well, Kristen still has her hand up with a few other guests, but she just put it down.
Okay. All right, if no hands are going up,
Actually,
Yeah.
do you mind if I have a couple other?
please, yeah.
Just to follow up. So I guess for me, just understanding, so I know that you put in the application for 300,000. You mentioned there's kind of two options within 300,000, either do a base 100,000, make sure it doesn't fall apart.
Yep.
Versus a 300,000 fully restored, it can drive on the road. I guess I'm trying to kind of debate myself about what is I think I mentioned earlier, what is the added value of going all the way to 300,000 from 100,000? Could you maybe explain what would the town get for the extra 200,000 investment that it's not getting for? I think it's about 100,000 for a base.
Yep.
Make sure it doesn't resolve into rust.
Ends up being an actual cost savings. The process of going in and making the truck mechanically sound like we want to involves taking axles apart, taking brakes apart, taking pretty much the chassis apart, fixing it up and putting it back together. If we did it in a stages, we're now paying almost twice as much for labor because we had to take the truck apart virtually once, put it back together for $100,000. And if we came back for a second stage to get the rest of it done, we'd have to blow that truck apart again, which is the bulk of the cost is actually physically taking the truck apart. It's the labor of taking it apart, looking at everything, putting it all back together. You take it apart once, it's already apart. You clean it, you do whatever you gotta do, you repair, you paint, then you put it back together.
Okay.
So it's we didn't actually run the numbers, and because when we met with the gentleman that's gonna do the work, it's gonna cost astronomically a lot more money if you did this in stages. And all three people that we had all three companies that we had discussed with all said the same thing, like this is a project that you do once. You don't do it in stages because it's gonna take twice as much time for them, twice as much money for us. It's just not worth it. Not a lot of people do that.
Okay.
It's just the labor cost. It's a weird thing to say that, hey, we're gonna spend money up front to save money down.
And has the association done any fundraising or anything, or pursued other funds in order to kind of offset the cost of this? Like, have you pursued public donations from people who support the?
So we were
fire
going
department,
to, the association only meets once a year right now. Trying to get the guys in one spot for a meeting is a little tough. So we tried to explore it, and a lot of them wanted to see how this would all play out first. And if it didn't go well, then we would start to put on that avenue of fundraising.
Okay. It seems to me like we're likely to support this project. If it were me, I would probably pursue the lower cost option and hope that the, association might be able to have some zealous supporters out there and perhaps offset the costs and maybe, I don't know, but I guess for me, I'm kind of hung up on, seems like we're giving you a lot of value here, $300,000 that you don't have to raise elsewhere. And I'm not sure what the town, if the value, I think the value that you're getting exceeds the value that the town is getting in terms of seeing it in parades a few days a year, school children, accessing it a few days a year. There are other fire trucks that school children can access, that kind of thing. And even though it's preserving a historic asset, I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm convinced. Sorry.
Understood. I think to that point, I would view the Southborough Firefighters Association as being the town's agent in maintaining and managing this historic asset. As well, the funds would be spent on behalf of the Firefighters Association. The future benefit that the association would see from having the fire truck, I don't see the association actually accruing a ton of benefit other than the physical truck itself. Because really you're taking on the work of managing the insurance and the upkeep and keeping drivers trained on it. And I'm sure there's some periodic maintenance duties that you have to do to keep the thing, operational. So I would view the association as sort of acting as the town's agent for this historic asset. But that's, reasonable minds can absolutely disagree on this stuff. Are there any other questions, comments, or concerns about the Engine 25 refurbishment, either here or remotely?
Not for me.
Okay,
Nobody in the audience that I see.
great. All right. So at this time, I am looking for a motion to recommend the Engine 25 refurbishment project to town meeting, contingent on the application being updated to reflect the discussions that have taken place during the review process, and that updated application to be submitted to the committee prior to February 10th. We'll work with you on that. And also contingent upon the working together, putting together an affidavit to guarantee that if the Firefighters Association disposes of the fire truck in any way, then ownership transfers to the town. And also that the affidavit contain a list of the goals in providing benefit to Southborough. We have gotten all the contingencies in there. Would somebody like to make a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Thank you, Ellen. And is there a second?
Second,
Thank you. Lisa, you got in there first. I will call the roll. Lisa Braccio,
yes.
Brett Peters,
Yes.
Grant Barrington?
Yeah.
No? Ellen Maria,
Yes.
and Ben Smith is a yes. Thank you. So, these next couple, are not quite ready for a vote. First up, the rural cemetery water tower restoration. We had spoken, thanks, Nate. We had spoken here, amongst ourselves about, asking the applicant to secure the services of a historical preservationist with expertise in particular in roofing. And we realized that we hadn't actually had that discussion with the applicant. So I actually, last week, had a wonderful conversation with Kevin Miller. And we talked at length about the water tower, and he was fully on board with the idea of securing those services. When we discussed this with the Community Preservation Coalition, Stuart Saganor forwarded us a list of qualified historical preservationists. And it's interesting that I would guess about 2/3 of those are also historic preservation contractors. So you sort of could do one-stop shopping. I got an email from Kevin today that I can't recall if he CC'd everybody on it or not, but he had spoken with Bill Cundiff, the co-applicant here, and about it, and Bill also was fully on board with the idea. And he, in fact, has a contact who is a contractor with historical preservation expertise, specifically in roofing, that he was going to reach out to and talk to about getting an estimate. So that we would have a figure before us when we ultimately conduct the vote on the project. So with that, questions or comments about the rural cemetery water tower restoration? So in the room here first, Ellen?
I think so. Yeah, I appreciate that connection being made and Kevin reaching out. I will just note he is in the audience.
Oh, great.
So in case everyone, after we all go through that, if there's anything you wanted to add. But I think that would be really helpful to have that information and to help us make a decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we can-
Thanks, Grant.
Yeah, just a couple things. One was, I know that we had a pretty extensive discussion about the cemetery trust fund and whether or not funds were available
Yes.
with that. Based on the lack of update, I'm assuming that didn't pan out, but I just thought I'd ask about it.
When we're done with the committee's comments, I think we can ask Kevin that question if he was able to reach out. And good luck.
Okay. And then also, I know in previous meetings, and I think it was in the minutes that you so helpfully put together, Ben, great prep for this meeting, that we had talked about ways to preserve the water tower. I know we've talked about a PR.
Yeah.
That was probably unlikely, but is there some sort of way that we can make it less likely that a future, cemetery director or DPW superintendent would knock down the building?
Yeah.
Again, I don't know, would be an affidavit or something in the warrant article, or not everyone reads warrant articles when they're making
Right.
decisions in their day-to-day, but something to actually preserve not just the town's investment, but preserve the asset itself.
So with that, we actually run into the problem we had last year, where we can't enter into that kind of an agreement with a town body. Can't do a contract or navigate it with a town body, unfortunately. And I think just because of the difficulty, I think verging on impossibility of getting somebody to hold the preservation restriction on that structure, I think our sole avenue would be to include language in a warrant article about the intention of the town to maintain the water tower as a permanent feature of the rural cemetery.
I would be interested in that, and I think that would satisfy me. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously a PR is in a perfect world, but yeah, I would be interested. And Historical Commission recently put up a bronze plaque, which should last a long time on it. So hopefully people will read that before getting ideas about knocking it down. But so I don't think it's in imminent danger, but just thought I'd ask about it. So that's it for me.
Thank you.
Oh, and I, as a member of Historical, we voted for it originally. I am will be supporting it tonight.
Great. Lisa.
Thank you. I actually had some of the same questions that Grant had, so other than, again, I think this is an important asset to the town, so I am supportive of it, but I think there's additional information that's required. Thank you.
Thanks. Brett.
Yeah, in general, yeah, I'm also supportive of it, and I didn't have any other, additional questions other than the outstanding things. I'm good.
Great. Thank you. All right, so Kevin, if you're listening in,
Excuse me, Ben,
yes.
I don't think Ellen gave her feedback yet.
I did, but thank you, Lisa.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
No, thank you.
Kevin, are you listening in?
Yes.
Oh, he does have his hand up.
Kevin, you should be unmuted, I think, or, okay, yeah.
Yeah, hi guys, can you hear me?
We can. Good evening.
Hello and thanks. I don't really have much to add. I think Ben represented what we discussed quite excellently. Yeah, Bill has a very good contact in historic roofing. He's reaching out. He's going to try to get that gentleman out in the next week or so, and hopefully we'll have a good answer about you know, getting a roof on there that's very high quality and historically accurate. I think, you know, the initial proposal I had brought forward, you know, included a kind of compromise on a architectural shingle. But the indications are that the original roof was cedar shakes. And so you know, with Ben's encouragement, that's what we're going to look at. And that may add some amount to the cost, but I think relatively modest. And to get something that would comport with the Secretary of the Interior's, you know, standards for historic preservation, also provide a long lifespan and a lot of beauty to that structure, it's well worth the expenditure. So I hope to have some good information from you with Bill's help. Hopefully by the time of your next meeting. And
Great, thank you.
and by the way, I just want to say I really appreciate the support and the encouragement on this point and the willingness that CPC has sort of suggested about wanting to do the project the right way, which obviously is very much appreciated. And just with regard to you know, that question of PRs and protecting the building in the long term, which I certainly appreciate. I've always had the feeling that this is a structure that, in essence, by its location and its nature, is protected, has very little threat posed to it. But I would point out that the Historical Commission will be keeping a sharp eye on this, and there is a provision of demolition by neglect, even in the demolition delay bylaw that we administer, and that we'll be keeping a very close eye to make sure that this structure is, you know, it is protected in perpetuity, as well as hopefully myself and future chairs and members of historical can see that's done. But in any case, thank you for allowing me to talk.
Well, thank you. And Kevin, just one last question. Have you had any luck in reaching out to the cemetery trust fund, or the commissioners of trusts rather?
Yeah, you know, Ben, I actually had to went back and looked at that meeting that I appeared before you folks, and I actually think that you had indicated that you were going to try to talk to Sam. I'm happy to do it.
Okay.
To the cemetery trust fund people. What I think I had put forward, and I still stand by the thought, is that I appreciate the idea of, let's say, trying to get the cemetery trust fund to sort of extend a hand toward this project. And if you recall, the tower is surrounded by a raised planting bed that's, you know, stone with a mortar kind of cap. And there's a plaque, if I believe it's a Newell, Newell Trust. And I had, you know, inquired whether that trust covered the tower, and the answer was no.
Yeah.
However, I don't think it would be unreasonable, and I think it might be a nice compromise to ask the Cemetery Trust Fund people, because if you remember my presentation that night, I mentioned that there's some need for repair to that raised flower bed. It extends off the south end of the tower. It kind of like runs up into the side of the tower on the south end, and then extends out maybe, I don't know, 15 feet. Again, a raised stone bed with a cement cap, and there's damage to that, weather damage kind of thing. You can lift off pieces of this stone cap. And I thought, for a relatively modest amount that perhaps the cemetery trust fund people could be prevailed upon to undertake that repair themselves. So that, in other words, there would be some contribution from cemetery trust fund toward the overall look of that particular spot in the cemetery, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you very much, Kevin.
Ben, I don't know,
Yes.
not to put him on the spot, but Sam Snyder is in the audience. So I don't know if we have any questions for him.
Sam, are you listening in?
Yes, he just raised his hand.
Oh, great.
Hey, Sam.
Good evening. I actually talked with Kevin about this previously, and you folks are welcome to bring it to the Board of Commissioners of Trust Funds. There's not a huge amount of money that goes out of there for the spend each year. They try to spend 2 or 3% of the asset value typically. And there's some other things that are pending in terms of a stone wall at the rear of the cemetery that is going to be a substantial expense. So I think that there's certainly competition for that money, but you're certainly welcome to bring it to the commissioners, and I'm sure we'd be willing to talk about it.
Okay, thank you, Sam. Thank you very much. Okay, so Kevin, if there's any way that we could have an estimate for our next meeting, which we've not scheduled yet. That's something we require in order to conduct the vote, and we are approaching pretty rapidly the end of our ability to time-wise to conduct a vote. We have to have our warrant article prepared really by March 1st. So time is drawing close. So anything that can be done to get that estimate is much appreciated. And with that, anything else from the committee on the rural cemetery water tower restoration? Okay. And are there any hands up in the audience? Okay, well, that's 6. Okay, so next, I had I think on the first draft of the agenda, I had the Affordable Housing Trust Fund application up under the prior agenda item for review and vote. I got an email from Al Hamilton a couple of days ago. Just read it really quickly. As you know, the state just approved the revised Affordable Housing Trust Fund bylaw. On Tuesday, January 7th, the select board appointed 4 out of the 5 members of the Board of Trustees of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. We're now trying to organize our first meeting, which will not happen before CPC meets on the 16th. Given that members of the CPC wish to understand in more detail about the strategy and intended uses of the CPA funds, I believe that it would be appropriate to delay the vote on the trust's application till such time as trustees can meet and formulate a response to your questions. I'm sure this will be done promptly. I would suggest that a meeting in February would be the time to meet and vote on the trustees' application. It seemed like a reasonable request. There's some discussion there about perhaps formulating a strategy as we had asked, and it seemed appropriate to put the vote off, at least until our next meeting. But I just wanted to see if there are questions or comments or concerns about that from the committee.
I think that sounds reasonable, just in terms of logistics question. I don't know when we're planning on meeting again next.
Yes.
But if we wait until, let's just say mid-February, or we might be meeting well before that, but will there be enough time to both consider the application and formal warrant article and do all the other things that we need to do by March 1st, or I honestly don't know, so that's just a question.
Yeah, it's we are approaching the time crunch. We haven't scheduled the next meeting yet, but that's later on in our agenda. I feel pretty comfortable we can at least extend it for one meeting. And we'll take things from there. Great. So Lisa, Brett, questions, comments?
Nothing for me on that one.
No, Ben, just that I think it's reasonable, and I'm glad that, they're gonna come back with some of the things that we were concerned about as far as, you know, a strategy moving forward. So, I appreciate that.
Okay, fantastic. And Ellen, you're,
Yeah, I was just gonna add, I think they posted a meeting for tonight. So I do
Okay.
think that they're meeting and yeah, I'm looking
Fantastic.
forward to seeing.
fantastic.
Folks.
Hopefully they can designate, because they have to designate a member to sit on CPC. And then that member has to then be appointed by the select board. And hopeful that that will be done. He will rejoin us. Okay,
Oh, we have a hand.
oh, we have a hand.
Christine.
Yes, Kristen.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So just Ben, on that last point, it's an interesting point. Does the select board have to appoint anymore now that the most recent bylaw change passed? And this is applicable to me as well. Rec has already voted me post town meeting to be the CPC representative. So we're just wondering procedurally, do I just need to go into the town clerk, or does the select board actually have to now? Do they have a role in approving?
So your appointment, first, congratulations, Kristen. I look forward to working with you again. That's
Yes, I
great
can't
news.
wait to be there.
Yeah, so for in terms of your appointment, I think Recreation just has to notify Mr. Hegarty. He may ask for a copy of minutes, just demonstrating the vote. And then you are all set. The reason why let me see, trying to think of the best way to explain this. At special town meeting, there was an article that dissolved Shopsy.
Right.
And an article that created the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Committee. Our article changed the language at the end of the list of all of the designating bodies. As folks might recall, one member of the planning board, as we changed it from designated to as appointed by the planning board. Well, the select board removed, because the Shopsy is no longer there, it falls back on, there's other language existing within the article that says if one of these bodies is dissolved, the select board chooses who the new appointing authority will be.
Got it.
So
Got it.
It defaults back to the old way for that one chair. So the two at large plus the member of presumably the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Committee will still be appointed by select board. The other six members will be appointed by their contributing companies.
Got it. Thank you for the explanation.
I feel like I could have explained it in one sentence instead of 10 minutes.
No, actually, I think that was really, for someone who kind of knows the process a little bit, that was good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Going forward, not that this should be our job, but it seems like it would be a good idea to clean up the town code with any references to Shopsy and move them over to Affordable Housing Trust.
Yeah,
Obviously, that would be a warrant article, but I think that would apply to ours as well, but we should probably update that.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so I believe that's it on the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Committee's application. Next up, I have an item on there under active project update and discussion. Jim Hegarty got in touch with me about the town clerk records restoration project, which has been going very well. There are two parallel tracks going on. One is document preservation by an archivist, Jeremy, whose last name escapes, who's done incredible work. I got to see some of it. And then for some of the really complicated stuff, materials are sent off to New England Document Conservation Company or some such. Yeah. And
ECC and some of that.
Yeah.
yeah, they sort of take a first glance at the batch of products and the batch of documents and say, okay, you know, we estimate this is gonna cost X dollars. But then as they go through, they may find that it takes either more or less work than originally anticipated, and the final bill comes in a little bit different. Apparently, the last couple of years, every bill that came in was always a little bit less than the rest of it. For the very first time, it was a little bit more. This is the very last bill from any DCC that'll come in under this project. And that $200 actually pushed them over the budget. And Jim is asking if we would approve the use of $200 out of the contingency funds to pay that extra $200 on the bill. He provided a copy of their invoice and gave that description and sent an email sort of documenting everything. I told him I would bring it to the committee this evening. I suspected it wouldn't be real heavy lift for us. But if there's any questions or comments, this is something we craft the warrant articles to require a vote of the committee to use any contingency funds. So we would have to conduct a vote. But before we do that, does anyone have any questions or comments about this?
Nope, thank you.
My only question is, I can't remember exactly, but how big was the contingency on this? I'm more out of curiosity.
It was
how
$1,000.
well we,
It was $1,000.
okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm glad we did that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so if there are no further, any hands up on this one? No, okay, thank you. So with that, just looking for a motion to approve the expenditure of $200 from the $1,000 contingency for the town clerk document restoration project. So moved. Thank you. And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Lisa Braccio,
Yes,
Brett Peters,
Yes.
Grant Barrington,
Yes.
Ellen Maria,
Yes.
and Ben Smith is yes. Okay. Timeline to annual town meeting. We've been sort of hitting on this throughout our discussion tonight. We are aiming for our warrant articles to be complete by March 1st. In order for that to happen, we need to have updated applications. We need to have at least started our discussions with applicants where appropriate. Because here we're speaking mostly about the Firefighters Association, about putting an affidavit together and what the contents of that will look like, just so that there are no surprises at the town meeting. Ideally, we'll have that affidavit together prior to town meeting. But once we get the warrant articles together, they have to go for legal review. We then have to go talk to advisory. Occasionally select board will want to talk to us as well about some of the articles. So that's the schedule we're looking at for in April 8th annual town meeting. Let's see, so project closeout and signage update. Freddie, of course, couldn't make it this evening, and she's been handling a lot of the tasks on that. So we'll be looking to her for an update at our next meeting. As we'd spoken about in the past, there's a historical society project that appears to be complete. I reached out to the society to let them know that he seeking to just return unspent funds. Mr. Weishan got back to me with a question. He believes that some funds may still be owed to the society, so I'm going through and doing some research on that. When I get it all sorted out, I'll report back in. Other than that, I think we really do have to wait for Freddie to be here for the for further details on the project closeouts. But that project is it's still chugging away. It's a lot of details to keep track of. Okay, so next up, the chair report. So we all received an email from Debbie DeMaria. About applications for historic preservation of the Flag School and the South Union School. Our last discussion of this, we we talked about the applications, because they don't have, a demonstration of site control by the applicant, that the applications were incomplete, and that we're unable to act on them because it's not a complete application. Part of that, I was going through our handbook, our application handbook, and I had forgotten the exact language here. I refreshed myself. Section 2.4, property owner permission. I'm just going to read it real quickly. If the applicant is not the owner of the property for which they are seeking CPA funds, it is required that they receive permission from the owner or owners of the property/building before applying for a CPA grant to do work there. For instance, if a project is requesting funds to do work on a building or land owned by the town, the applicant must show written permission from the select board. If the project is to be done on grounds of one of Southborough schools, written permission from the school committee is required. Alternatively, if funds are being petitioned for a project done on private property, permission must be given by the owner or board of the organization. So I think it does, spell out that this is a requirement for the application. I want to get a feeling from the committee here. We can't, if the committee's will to conduct a vote on this, we can't do it tonight. I'd have to put that on our next agenda. My original intention was not to conduct a vote because the applications are incomplete. But it sounds like Debbie is looking for some official action on this. And I just want to sound out the committee and what your feelings are. Do you feel that we should conduct a vote? Should we reply to the email that we're unable to act? Should we conduct a vote to, approve or deny? Should we conduct a vote to declare the application incomplete and not actionable? We've got a whole universe of possibilities, and I'd love to hear opinions. So, Ellen, I'll start with you.
Sure. So I had a question to kind of add to the list of options. So the email also mentioned kind of asking to keep the CPC applications open. And I'm just wondering what effect that has. What does that mean in terms of us taking one of the votes you offered and these applications potentially coming back in the future? There's no kind of place in line that's lost. So I'm just wondering, kind of, do we have a definition, or kind of what does that mean in terms of keeping an application open from our perspective?
We don't have any official policy on that. But if it's not acted on, we would seek a new application next year. This won't be the case, but if the application form itself hasn't changed, obviously the same application could be submitted.
Yeah.
We've already talked, I think, at a couple of meetings about some changes we might make to the application itself.
Sure.
So, nothing would stop any applicant from, updating it with new required information and resubmitting it. Is that?
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I would personally say I wouldn't be comfortable taking a vote on it at this point. I think I appreciate the spirit of these applications and the value of the assets that are seeking to be preserved here. I think the process is important, and this isn't process for the sake of process. This is a really essential piece of this. It's spelled out as you just read. And I don't feel it's appropriate for us to take a vote when kind of one of the core pieces of the application hasn't been met in terms of that site control.
Okay, thank you. Grant.
I think Brett wants to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry, Brett, go right ahead.
Sure. Yeah, I guess the thing I was going to say is I kind of agree that there's no great vote to take. The vote, like if I had to suggest a vote, I might say that we could vote that we all agree that the proposal, we approve of the merits of the proposal and we like it, and we vote to, you know, we could vote to say we'll continue working with the applicant and trying to polish it off and polish it up till it is in a state when it can be voted on. But, or just kind of a vote of a thumbs up, and we'd like to continue working with it, not move, but not officially approve it.
Thank you. Grant?
Yeah, so as I had mentioned at the beginning of this process, I'll be abstaining from any vote that we might take on it. Just in terms of process generally, I think we should probably have some sort of official action, whether or not it's a vote or agreeing to send a letter explaining why there will be no vote or whatever it is. I think just again, not just with these applications, but other ones.
Yeah.
It's fair to the applicant to let them know we won't be acting on it or we will be acting on it, that kind of thing. So I think probably some sort of official action, whether it be a letter or voting, I guess that'd be voting to send a letter.
Yeah.
Or actually having a vote.
Okay.
In terms of what form that takes, I guess I'm kind of open, but I think so,
Thank you.
rather than just letting it kind of disappear. Yeah.
No, I hadn't thought of it. Yeah, that's a good idea. Lisa?
So I'm kind of torn on this one. I worry about leaving applications open going into the next application season. I agree. I don't know that we necessarily need to vote no. I mean, it's incomplete is incomplete, but I agree with Grant that at least the least action we should take is to let the applicant know that it is incomplete and that we can't act on it at this time, and that, you know, that doesn't reflect on the merits or the support that the committee may have on that. But I do think it's important for us to kind of close that out. Again, I just worry about applications hanging out there because, you know, one day you could have 50 applications that have, you know, great intentions that we support, but then suddenly they get lost in all of the new applications that come in. So I'm just trying to figure out a cleaner process, Ben, and maybe without taking a vote, which Ellen, I completely agree with, but Grant, I think at least sending a letter, letting them know that we aren't acting on it and they're welcome to bring it back is probably for me a cleaner process in starting the new application process this summer. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. So a couple of things just to touch on real quickly. This is something came from a recommendation from the Community Preservation Coalition, and it's a really good one. We talked about it at a previous meeting. Our technical review meeting that we have every September or October should be renamed the technical application and eligibility review, where we go through and do our technical comments, but also determine if it's actually eligible for funding. And it's interesting, when I was going through putting the first draft of the manual together, I looked at a whole bunch of different municipalities, and especially in larger cities and towns, it's really common to have a two-step application process. In fact, the first step is you put together a project description and it gets submitted for an eligibility review. And only if you pass that review are you then allowed to submit a formal application. We're a smaller municipality. This is for many of us our second appointment. And it's tough to meet too many times over the year. So I think having it in one meeting would be entirely appropriate, but just to sort of add to our process, we are determining eligibility. And I think in this particular case, that would have, we would have addressed this earlier in a way that would have caused a lot less confusion. I like the idea, but I think we could act to, see. I think it would be better if we postponed a vote on sending a letter until the next meeting. Let me think on that. Actually, I don't think that'd necessarily be, we would necessarily have to do that. We could absolutely vote this evening to send a letter to the applicant saying, I think to a person, we've all expressed support for the historic preservation of these two buildings. But that the application is incomplete without a demonstration of site control. And we are unable to act on it. We would welcome a complete application in our next funding cycle, words to that effect.
I think
Are
that's
we-
great, Ben.
Yeah, Grant, if you have a,
Oh, no, so are we able, because I'm looking at the agenda, like, does that just fall under application review and update, even if it's not formally listed, like,
Yeah,
I make a pain.
you know,
But, or,
I think to be as clean as possible, we probably ought to put it off until the next meeting. Now that you say that, Grant, and just get an actual agenda item on there. And then conduct that vote. That sound good to folks?
and if others think that we're okay, I don't want to have a open meeting law violation, that's it.
Yeah, no, I think we should err on the side of, of being careful with public meeting law, obviously, open meeting law. Okay. Let's handle it that way then.
Sorry, I
Oh, no, thank you for,
don't want to be that guy.
no, it's the right thing to do, Grant. So thank you. All right, next up, next meeting dates. Let's see here. Today is the 16th. First date that jumps out at me is February 6th, which is 3 weeks from tonight.
So Ben, I'm not sure whether I can do the 6th, only because
Okay.
I'm having surgery on my wrist on the 31st.
Oh,
And
gosh.
yeah, so I tentatively I could say yes. But again, I don't know. Yeah, I'm trying to keep that week open because I don't know
Yeah.
what's gonna happen. Sorry.
Understood. And whenever we schedule a meeting like this, it is always somewhat tentatively that we do it, and we coordinate in the days leading up just to make sure everyone can attend. Are others able to think they'd be able to make it on the 6th? Or another alternative would be the 30th, the week before.
Both are free for me. If Lisa can attend the 30th. And not the
I can
6th,
do
then
either one as well.
maybe that would be my preference. I guess maybe would we have enough to eat on?
Yeah, the reason I suggested the 6th was to make sure there's enough time for Kevin and Bill Cundiff to get an estimate together.
Yeah.
For the water tower.
Ben, if I had to have a choice between the two, the 30th, the night before my surgery, and
Yeah.
I have to be there early in the morning, so
Oh,
that wouldn't work. So let's tentatively schedule it for the 6th.
Okay.
You know,
if that
And we'll
doesn't
just-
work, yeah, we can push
You
it to the
know.
next week if that doesn't work.
we'll just play, I mean, hopefully everything's gonna be good, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but you just never know what you never know.
Okay, so we'll pencil it in then for February 6th.
At 7.
At 7. My calendar. Okay, great. All right, so next up, I emailed everybody a stack of minutes, only a few hours before the meeting, so I know folks would not have been able to get through them. I've been getting some reminders from town clerk's office because we are quite a bit behind on minutes. So this will, with the exception of tonight, make us current. I haven't put together all of the documents that were used at the meetings. I don't have those together yet. One thing that I could do is submit these as draft minutes, which will bring us into compliance, and we can then at our next meeting do the actual edits, or perhaps we could, if folks are able to maybe we could go through one or more this evening. Because I prepared the minutes and will likely be taking care of any edits, we can't do that outside of a public meeting because we would rapidly hit a quorum violation. So we kind of have to do the editing in person on these. Are people comfortable spending, 10 minutes, at least get one of these knocked out? So I can get that submitted?
I am, Ben.
That's fine.
Thank you for doing
Yep.
this. I want to say, I think you did a great job. Again, I just skimmed through them and I didn't see any edits. So, but
Oh.
thank you for taking the time to do this.
I will say Grant told me about an AI service that apparently does a great job at summarizing, YouTube videos that he has some experience with, and I'm eager to try it. It sounds,
I'll show you after.
It sounds really cool, yeah.
Good.
So, okay, then let's give it a try. Let's see how quickly it goes with the minutes from October 23rd, 2024.
I have some edits, pretty light ones. I don't know, do you have any?
I haven't read them yet,
Oh,
so
okay.
go ahead.
Okay, so I'll just go through if that works.
Yeah.
All right, let's see, first paragraph, Bill Cundiff, I think we should give his title as DPW superintendent. Or not first paragraph, and the committee attendance.
Oh.
Non-committee in attendance.
There we go. Yes,
Because that, he's the head
where's,
of the,
Director of Public Works.
that would work. Okay, let's see, page 2. Town common railing and fence, that one.
Yes.
So it's the 4th paragraph down,
Yep.
Andrew Dennington. I think it's 3 scope and budget options instead of alternatives.
Okay, yeah.
Because not an alternative to another thing, I think it's just
Right.
one of them, yeah. Okay, and then last page, or no, yeah, last page with just the minutes. It's not necessary, but I don't think we need to say Grant Barrington requested that a typographic error be fixed, because I think if we say minutes as amended, then but that's just preference. Another thing, adjournment. And I only know this because I had the video up while doing this, but I'm pretty sure Doug voted yes to adjourn.
Oh, yes, he did. I
Okay.
copy and pasted from above and I missed that. Thank you.
No worries. And the only reason I thought to look at that, because I thought it'd be strange to abstain from adjournment. And then I did look mainly just by scrolling through the video just to see kind of what was shared on the screen for documents used.
Yes.
At this meeting, I'm pretty sure it was just the Nate had a engine 25 refurbishment presentation, and Kevin shared photos of the condition of the rural cemetery water tower.
Yes.
So those are, I think maybe we should just put that down, because I know the clerk's office wants to say what's there, so they can.
Oh,
so
they want on the minutes?
Yeah, it's,
Okay.
they want it so that they can verify essentially whether or not they have all the documents, which is especially now the new bylaw.
Yes.
So
So the engine 25,
yeah, typically I'll just do documents used at the meeting at the very end.
okay.
And I'll just list engine 25 presentation, and to be honest, I don't know if we're gonna get the photos from
And then
Kevin, but photos of the water tower. And that's it for me. They were excellent minutes.
oh, thank you. Okay, does anyone else have any comments or edits or changes?
We do have a hand.
Oh, yes.
Kristen
Yes, Kristen.
should be on.
I'm sorry, my comment isn't about the minutes, so please continue with that. I have an unrelated comment.
Okay,
No comments on the minutes. So great, thank you.
thank you. Lisa and Brett, are you still going through them or?
I'm
Yeah,
all
I
set
just
then.
finished going through. Yeah, no comments from me.
Make a motion, is it too early? Or can I do it?
Wait, Lisa, she said she was still looking?
No, I'm
Oh, I
all
thought
set
you said
then.
something.
Oh, you are. Oh, okay. Then with that, is there a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Brett, do you want to be the second?
Sure, second.
Okay, I'll call the roll. Lisa Braccio,
Yes.
Brett Peters,
Yes.
Grant Barrington,
Yes.
Lisa, Ellen Meyer,
Yes.
and Ben Smith is a yes. I mean, that took 5 minutes. You mind, does anyone mind if we do, another set? Okay.
Let's do it. Which one are we picking next?
Oh, I'm sorry, the, Thursday, November 21st.
Okay.
I also have some light edits here,
Yes, please.
a bit more than the last one, but not too many, so. Okay, maybe Kristen can verify this if we need to, but I'm pretty sure she spells her name with a capital V. So for
Oh.
non-committee in attendance.
That's correct. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Kristen. My apologies. I forgot.
Kristen
then-
with an I, Kristen with an I and last name with capital V. That's, everyone gets that wrong. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then also, I don't think we need her address.
I think we're required to, right, if somebody's not a town official, just like they have to announce their address before giving their first comment.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, let's see. Okay, so 2024 review applications, Affordable Housing Trust Funds, 1, 2, 3 paragraphs down.
Starting Lisa Braccio.
Yeah. The second line, Al Hamilton said that should just be a lowercase.
Oh, yeah.
He had not. And then also in that paragraph, I would add the word erroneously in front of emailed.
Oh, yeah.
The letter was erroneously emailed to Al Hamilton's daughter, who has a similar email address. To make it, I mean, I guess maybe that's not necessary, but
Yeah, no, it's correct. That's what happened. That's what happened.
okay. See what else do I have? So okay, the next page. I think it's still the same section. 1, 2, 3, so 4 paragraphs down. Grant Barrington.
Yes.
I think I'd prefer to say Grant Barrington said he thinks the need for specificity is necessary due to the amount of funding requested. I think that's
Oh, okay.
cleaner. Again,
Necessary due.
okay. And so I guess that would be replacing tied to.
Yeah, so instead of tied, I'll replace it with necessary due.
Okay, yeah. Bottom of that, or second from the bottom, again, Kristen, with the capital V.
Okay.
Next page. Flag School on 21 Highland Street.
Yes.
All throughout this paragraph, Demiria as a capital
Oh,
L. The capital
that one's
in the
killing me.
middle of the name, yeah, so there's 3 in that,
yes.
1, 2, and then on the 4th line, yep. Splitting hairs, but if we want to do it, project closeout update. On the next page,
Yes.
I think. We can correct me if I'm wrong, but facade has a sedile on that.
Wow.
If we want to do that,
I didn't even know what that was.
Yeah.
Oh, on the C.
yeah, the
Yeah,
little
yeah,
thing that hangs
yeah,
underneath it.
That's really gonna tax my.
I know,
words.
right? And then finally, documents used at the meeting, I scrolled through the video, I think it was the draft. FY26 draft budget and the closeout list, and I have like pictures of both of those that I took. Remember, I don't know if you remember, but Freddie had it in person and I
Yes.
screenshotted it or whatever and shared it, so I can provide you with those.
Oh, that would be great.
So, yeah, I just said FY 26 draft community preservation budget. And then project closeout list for the documents used.
Perfect.
That's it.
What's everyone else doing?
I have nothing further, Ben.
Thank you.
Yeah, and nothing also for me.
Thank you, Brett.
Good as well.
Okay. With that, is there a motion to accept the minutes of November 21st as amended?
So moved.
Thank you. And is there a second?
Second,
Thank you. Lisa Braccio,
yes.
Brett Peters,
Yes.
Grant Barrington,
Yes.
Ellen Maria.
Wait, sorry, I do.
Okay,
Just because it is important. It lists Doug is absent, but then he speaks throughout the meeting.
oh, good catch. Okay,
Thank
I will move him up. Thank you. Good catch, Josh. Okay, and
yes,
you are a yes. Okay, thank you very much. All right, so you know what? The last minutes, it's only 2 pages, the shortest of the lot, and but we can knock them out in just a couple of minutes.
Had two very minor things. And then just the documents used as well. Let's see, second page, Mass Housing Partnership Seminar,
Yes.
third paragraph down. Elmaria shared details, there should be an O and an
Oh,
O.
yeah.
And then similarly, in the next paragraph, Shelley Goring also has an O before the E.
Oh, it does. Okay, yeah.
I left it out. And then the only other thing is documents used at the meeting. Technically, we shared it on the screen. I don't even know how much we talked about it, but we had the CPA completed project return form for the golf course committee.
Yeah.
And I have a copy of that if you, well, I think maybe Freddie sent it out or something, but if you need it, I can put to you for submitting it.
Perfect. And well, I'll talk with you after the meeting, Grant, about submitting minutes to town clerk. I just haven't done that before.
Oh, okay, yeah, I can help.
one very minor.
Yes.
On the second page, under Mass Housing Partnership Seminar, where it starts with Lisa Braccio,
Yes.
Harbor Light Homes, there's
Yes.
no S on the lights, and
Okay.
it's one word.
Oh, okay. And I only used the name once. Okay,
Yes.
good. Hey, anybody else with any edits or changes?
I'm all set.
Same, I'm all set.
Okay, so with that, is there a motion to accept the minutes of December 10th as amended?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Lisa Braccio,
Yes,
Brett Peters,
Yes.
Grant Barrington,
Yes.
Ellen Maria,
Yes.
and Ben Smith is a yes. Thank you, everyone. My God, we're up to date on minutes
Thank
for
you.
the first time in a
Yes,
year.
they're great.
It's a lot of work.
Kristen, thank you for your patience. I'm sorry, you had your hand up.
Yes, can you hear me okay? You can?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, great. So, no, it's okay. So obviously this is public comment. Kristen Laval, 12 Southwood Drive, speaking as a private citizen. But I do want to call to your attention that I, again, as a private citizen, I was at last week's select board meeting on January 7th. Under scheduled appointments, their third item on the agenda, there was item B, capital improvement and planning committee fiscal year 26 capital recommendations. I just wanted to make sure, in case you weren't aware, that there was a lengthy discussion brought up, I think rather unexpectedly, about Choate, which is Woodward, fields and possible turf there, which is something that the Recreation Commission, which I am a member of, has been exploring for years. This is not a new project. So both the CPC and the Recreation Commission were heavily referenced in the January 7th discussion, despite having no representation. So I was there just as a citizen. I had no idea. But as a rec member, I can suggest that there were facts misrepresented. So I asked just that everyone on this committee perhaps should watch that meeting, because again, the CPC was heavily focused on in terms of positions as well as process, where Mr. Hamilton suggested, again, the idea of application deadlines might be something that should be challenged. And I also just wanted to mention that I believe a meeting is being planned between the select board and either advisory or capital, I'm not sure, and rec to further discuss this in the next week. And of course, our CPA process, application process is closed given the proximity of town meeting. But based on Mr. Hamilton's comments in the January 7th meeting, I just suggest that we may need to be prepared for further discussion. Personally, like, I'm on rec, I doubt about, trying to push through something for turf, but again, those discussions are to be held. But certainly, I think about our process and the application process and deadline. So again, I just wanted to highlight that to you in case you weren't aware, and encourage you to go back and watch that session on YouTube.
Kristen, thank you so much. I meant to, so I'm moving us back to the chair report item. I meant to mention this and I forgot. Lisa flagged it to my attention, and we both, I believe, I know I watched the meeting and the recording. I believe Lisa did too. And Kristen, of course, you described it accurately. There was quite a bit of discussion about community preservation. I think part of it was sort of a game of telephone, where I had a conversation with a very friendly conversation with Travis, who reached out to me, with Travis Farley, about Choate Field and about the fundability of an artificial turf field. And really the emphasis of our conversation was that our funding capacity is, especially in the budgeted reserve, is exhausted. You folks remember from last year, the entire historical bucket goes towards bond payments, and then 75% of our budgeted reserve goes towards bond payments, and we just don't have any more bonding capacity in the budgeted reserve. So that means we're left with the recreation bucket. And I think the most we would be able to contribute towards a bond payment is, we could only bond against 75% of that, which would bring us somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think, a little less than $30,000 for bond towards, what it sounds like is they would be seeking something like $2 million from community preservation. And we simply don't have that bonding capacity. So I told that to Trevor, and I think, so he talked to somebody and somebody talked to capital planning. And I think, like I said, a little bit of a game of telephone where things kind of evolved. Because of that, some other, Kristen, you mentioned that Mr. Hamilton was upset about us having a filing deadline. There was also some discussion of I think a misunderstanding of how much money we have on hand. With all of that, I put together a letter that Lisa was good enough to help with. It was an email that I addressed to Kathy just to clear up some confusion on this, where I addressed each of these issues and tried to correct the record. I meant to put it in my notes for the chair report and I completely forgot. So thank you, Kristen, for reminding me.
Well, no, thank you, Ben. Again, I this is not an attack, like unfortunately, what it could come across as from just a citizen not involved was a bit of well, I guess some not so friendly comments about CPC and or the Recreation Commission. And I just, again,
Yes.
with neither being represented, that was unfortunate. So I thank you so much for addressing that.
And I thank you, Kristen, for so you attended that meeting remotely, I believe, and you spoke up about it, and I appreciated your words. What you said was correct. They were discussing these two town bodies with no notice of it that it was going to be taking place, and given the general tone of the discussion, we really should have been a part of it, and it would have been much more productive had we been. It's
So much
important
more, yeah.
that we get things correct. Misconceptions just sort of build on each other and can create a mess.
Ben,
So
can
thank
I,
you for speaking out.
can I
Absolutely.
add
Thank
to that?
you.
Yes, Lisa.
So I also want to thank you, Kristen. Little shocking to watch. I do suggest then that obviously there's things in the pipeline, and I know you have repeatedly asked over the years, we ask everybody. And I would ask that we see if the Capital Committee is available for our meeting on the 6th. And I'd like to know if they have anything that we should be aware of, that's coming in the pipeline, whether, they have a 10-year plan. Let's see if there's anything in there that as we forecast ourselves and we look at how monies, you may be getting less from the state going forward. How can we best budget what's in there, to best benefit the citizens of Southborough? So either for that meeting or the meeting, any meeting after, Ben, I really think we should have Capital come in and bring anything that they believe could potentially be CPC funded. So we can do our job effectively.
Absolutely. And, every year we, this year, Lisa, you led a huge PR effort for our annual forum, which is one of the primary goals of that is for town departments and boards, committees, and commissions to share their future outlook regarding the CPA projects. And even with that tremendous public outreach, well, you know what? We did get a few. We were Mr. Miller from Historical reached out and discussed a couple of potential projects. I believe Nate Kendall attended the forum and told us a little bit about his hopes for the Engine 25 restoration. So a couple of folks did, and it was really helpful to us. Now, if we could get a copy of their 10-year plan so we can start looking out beyond the next funding cycle, that would be fantastic. There may well be things that we want to start budgeting for. Because right now, as we all know, our budgeted reserve is shrinking with every year. Potentially, if town meeting agrees, going to be shrinking some more for this funding cycle. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, so just to respond to Kristen, thanks, Kristen. I didn't know anything about that. you said that there's gonna be a meeting upcoming with advisory and capital, was it? Do you know when that is or?
No,
it's already
I-
posted?
No, I was honestly, I was just texting with Jen, our chair today, Jen Hansen. And in that meeting, I know the selectmen, I know Andrew, and then I forget whom from the selectmen, maybe Kathy, agreed to meet with rec, because again, there was a lot of facts that were, well, no, I shouldn't say that. There were a lot of statements being made that were not fact. I think it's going to be a like an offline meeting. I didn't get the sense that it was going to be a public meeting. I did want to suggest that CPC should be there. So that maybe that's something we should discuss, that CPC might want to have a representative there as well, because it seems like there's a lot of, I love your characterization. There's a lot of telephone going on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kristen. Yeah, so that's the news there. Just one last comment on it. I think it's sort of the expected. There is, how do I describe this? A little bit of resentment, I think, still lingers after special town meeting and our citizens petition warrant. That I think, just my opinion, it appears to me that it colors the perceptions of some other folks in town government, their perceptions of CPC. And I hope that slowly dissipates over time. Glad we did what we did. It's the right thing to do. But that doesn't mean that we don't want to absolutely work together with the select board and every other town body in an absolute productive way. So with that, anyone have anything else that they want to bring up this evening?
Just to kind of piggyback about what you were saying about kind of long-term planning, I know that I
Yes.
talked about this briefly, must have been over a year ago now, I think, but the master plan, planning board, well, just master plan implementation committee and planning board, which put forward the master plan, has like 200 goals for the town over the next 10 years, but it does include potential, or it did include potential funding sources, and CPA, I believe, was one of them.
Okay.
So it could be worthwhile either for us to check it out or to reach out to master plan implementation committee, which full disclosure, my mom chairs.
Yes.
Or planning board, to be honest with you, to get a sense of what they thought at that time was CPA fundable, and maybe get a sense for heading into the next cycle.
Yeah.
What potential projects there might be here, that kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah. Lisa mentioned the capital plannings. They have a 10-year plan. Just one thing that was a little bit tough for me was, it's pretty clear that discussions have been going on about Choke Field. I suspect, even predating our public forum last year. And then, the first that I heard about it was the last week in November that that Travis he got in touch with me by email and asked if we could have a chat by phone. And that's when we had that discussion. Months after our application window had closed. And if somebody had just, kind of reached out, given us an idea that's coming down the road, I would have known to reach out to Travis. Understanding he was still sort of getting his feet under him as the new director or whatever, but could have helped him. Hey, let's help putting an application together. And we could have done something like that. So.
Ben, can I jump in real quick there? And I don't mean
Yes.
it'll be quick, but that's what's kind of frustrating, both for you. Like, I feel frustrated for you and for Travis, because remember, recreation did not have the turf field in our capital plan this year. It was capital who approached rec, given the Neary project, to say maybe we should bring this project in. So yeah, you have Travis coming in new, and now I think, I'm not going to get the timeline correct, but I'm not even sure when capital approached Travis to say, hey, can we bring this project in? And Jen, if it was probably even past the application deadline. So
Okay.
there's
Yeah.
so much complexity to this project. Like we have been looking at this for 5-6 years probably. And so you are not to blame. Travis is not to blame. Like no one's to blame.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But I just don't want anyone getting the wrong idea. Like no one did something wrong here. Like, but in some ways, I'm sorry, but in that meeting, it was portrayed that perhaps people did. So that's just what we have to address.
Yep. Yep, no, I think you put that very well, Kristen. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
very
much.
well said, Kristen.
And I have to say, my experience with, Travis has some big shoes to fill. Tim was a superstar. And Travis is off to a running start. He seems like a fantastic guy in all my interactions with him.
Absolutely.
All right, with that, if there's nothing else, there's one last motion to make if somebody would like the honors.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. And is there a second? Second. Lisa Braccio,
Yes.
Brett Peters,
Yes.
Grant Barrington,
Yes.
Ellen Maria,
Yes.
and Ben Smith is a yes. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks.
Good night. Hope you feel better, Lisa.
Feel better.
Thank you.